Hey, I hope you guys are having a great weekend, and I hope that you're wrapping up your work week. School's done now, so hopefully the things are just kind of falling into place for you, and you guys are getting ready for a summer, a great summer of serving and family time and spending time with friends. Today's lesson that we're going to be previewing is based off of a quote that Joseph says at the very end of his life in Genesis chapter 50 when he says that you guys meant this for evil, but God meant it for good. And so it's kind of the summary and the conclusion of the story of the life of Joseph and what happened there. And our text is Genesis chapter 41, verse 44, all the way through the end of the book of Genesis. And so we're going to be taking some major chunks of scripture and breaking them apart. I'm trying to explain them as best that we can, and so that people will understand them, but not really probably getting bogged down with reading the text because that would be a lot of reading in order to get through it. This passage starts, first of all, talking about how Joseph has been exalted to the position of being in charge of making sure that they prepare well for the famine that is coming based upon the interpretation of the dreams that Joseph has laid out for them. And so, as a result of that, he's put in this position. So, he takes the 7 great years that were there. He puts a lot of time and energy into those 7 years, making sure that they're saving and they're stocking up well and that they're well prepared and ready for the famine time. So when the famine does come, we're told that all the other nations that were under a drought as well and under a time of famine end up coming to Egypt to seek supplies. And as a result of Joseph's great work, Egypt is able to provide for them. Well, certainly amongst that group of people was Joseph's own family. And so Jacob sends his sons to come to see Joseph, and when they arrive, um, Joseph recognizes who they are, but they have no clue who he is. And so he goes through a series of tests just to reveal to them who he is. And eventually, emotionally, gets to the place of where he breaks down and tells them, I'm your brother, and I love you. And ends up bringing his father and bringing his family to Egypt, where he's able to take care of them because of his wisdom and because of the position that he's been placed in. He's able to just take care of them for the rest of the time. So here we see Joseph being sold into slavery, and as a result of that, ends up saving the entire nation of Israel because of the way God worked things out in his life. And so we just want to talk about a few things with the teens. First of all, Joseph certainly had the opportunity when his brothers came to him that he could have just killed them. He could have kidnapped them. He could have thrown them into a giant pit and left them there or sold them into slavery. But when he had the opportunity to have a chance to respond to those who had wronged him, he decided to seek to be restored with them. And so let's just talk a little bit about in our groups about, is our natural inclination to seek to get revenge, or is it to seek to be restored? And why does that look different, and how does that look different in the in the events and in the regular life of a teenager? How does that look different? Those two things. So we'll talk about that. The other thing is then for Joseph to have the wisdom, and all the way in Genesis chapter 50, verses 19 through 21, to look back at his entire life and look at all the craziness of it, chosen son, favorite son, um, slave, uh, leader of Potiphar's house, into being a prisoner, exalted to chief prisoner, and eventually exalted to basically prime minister of the strongest country in the entire world. And so Joseph looks back at all of this craziness in his life, and here's what he says: God meant all of this for good. Let's just talk a bit about in our life, when God works through our life, do we recognize that it was God who did the work, or do we try to steal the glory? I think a natural temptation is for us to try to take that glory away from God and apply it to ourselves. And so, um, why do we do that? And how do we avoid doing that? And then, do you see all the ways that God has worked in your life to bring you to the place where you are now? Even to the place of where you're just born in Lafayette, Indiana, and you've grown up in a good home. So these are the things we'll want to talk about this week. I look forward to seeing you guys on Sunday. I hope that you're able to come to our house for the cookout at 5:30 on Sunday night as well. and have a great weekend.